La la la. Gotta get nice and warmed up. I want to make sure those pipes are ready so that I can talk to you guys. And yes, when I say you guys, I mean Latin 1 this time. I know I've been doing a lot of stuff for 3. But Latin 1, this one's for you, or Latin 3 if you need review, or anybody who just wants to learn more about demonstrative pronouns. Yeah, you probably thought we were done with pronouns because you already watched the video on personal pronouns. And yes, personal pronouns are important, but they're not the only kinds of pronouns that there are. I know that probably seems weird because when you're in your English classes, usually you just learn things like I, you, he, she, and it as pronouns. And they are, but they are specifically personal pronouns, and there are such things as demonstrative pronouns. Now, I'm putting this video up now because if you're watching this contemporaneous to when we're reading, the book is starting to use a lot of these, but they don't introduce it for like another, I don't know, like 7 or 8 chapters. It comes almost at the very end of the book. But they're already using them right now. So we might as well go ahead and learn about it right now. And of course, if you're watching this in the future, then, hopefully this is good review or, catch up or whatever. All right. So when I talk about demonstrative pronouns, if you don't know what the term means, it might sound big and scary, but I'm literally just talking about the words this and that. Just the words this and that. Real simple words that you use all the time in English, pretty much every day. All right. And the Latin words that correspond to this and that are hic and ille. Well, I mean, I say it's hic and ille, but really, it's these things come in genders, so it's actually often referred to as hic haec hoc and ille illa illud, which would be each of the nominative singular forms for every gender. Hic would be masculine, haec feminine, hoc neuter, same on the bottom, right? So, yeah, so this would be like this would be that. I know, it almost sounds like a Who's on First routine when you say it that way, but we use demonstrative pronouns all the time, and I can't easily describe demonstrative pronouns without also using demonstrative pronouns in the description. Now, one of the crucial things that is probably going to bug you is that you have to learn how to decline them. Because just like every other noun, adjective, and a pronoun, they have case endings, right? If the job of a pronoun is to take the place of a noun, then it has to go into all the same cases as a noun. There is an exception here. There is no vocative. Pronouns don't exist in the vocative, so that's one thing. But then again, we don't spend a lot of time worrying about the vocative, so I don't know if that's much relief. Rather than go through them singularly or individually, I'm just going to show you all of hic at once, which is to say, if you want to write this down, you might need to pause the video. Then again, you can also find this in the back of your textbook. You can also find it if you're reading Ecce Romani, as we are in my class. You can also find it in chapter 26. You can also just find this on the internet. It's very easy to find the forms of hic. But while I have this up, I do want to point out a couple of important things. One is that you'll notice the genitive and dative singulars are the same in every gender. Exactly the same in every gender. This is the same as isse id, our third person personal pronoun was. It was always eus and ei in every single gender. It didn't matter what. And here we have huios and huic in every gender. Doesn't change, okay? This is something that's very common to all types of pronouns apart from the first and second person. There are a couple of kinds of pronouns that we still haven't learned yet that we'll find out about later, primarily in Latin 2, that do the same thing. There's even some rare nouns and adjectives that behave this way. You don't need to worry about those right now, but just know that, your forms of isse id kind of mirror the forms of hic haec hoc. So not only do you have the same thing in every single gender for the dative and genitive singular forms, but also one of the easier parts about it is that the plural forms are pretty much just first and second declension endings. So if you did get your first and second declension endings down, then you're good. And these are all the ways that you would see the word this or these. This if it's singular, these if it's plural. So that's how you say this or these. And of course, when you're doing the different cases, all the rules that we know about the cases still apply. Nominative is still subject, genitive is still going to be translated with an of typically, datives are still with a to or a for, accusatives are still direct objects, all that junk still applies, all right? For the forms of ille, it's going to be a lot of no surprises here. Pretty much the same deal. The genitive and dative are the same in every gender, so you get ilius and illi, all right? So I'm definitely relying on the ius and the I there. And yeah, pretty much the same thing in the plurals as well. It's the same as any first and second declension noun or adjective. All right. So, and that's just how you would say that or those. Again, if you need to write this down, feel free to pause this and scribble it all out. But honestly, it'll probably be easier to go ahead and compare this to what you see in your textbook. And again, you can find it in the back, or you can find it in chapter 26. Again, if you're reading Akiramani, if you're some other student, or if you don't have your textbook anymore, look it up online. All right. Or if you're a student from some other class and you stumbled onto this, your textbook does have this in it somewhere. I promise it's not missing. Now, one thing to point out before I go into some examples of how to use this is, and I did mention this in class, but in case you missed it or forgot, this word, particularly heek, can seem problematic because when we first learned this as a vocab word, it did not mean this, it meant here. All right? The real important distinction is that it means here when the I is long. All right? If the I has a long mark above it, it is the adverb here and not the pronoun this. Now you're probably thinking that's dumb and I hate it. Well, that's fine. Homophones are a thing, right? They're a thing in all languages, especially in English. But it's not as if these are two random words that just happen to look alike minus or plus a long mark. They are actually related. Heek with a long mark means here as in this place. And in fact, it's not the only word of that type that's derived from heek. We actually get a few. And I went ahead and wrote them down here because heek means here as in this place. Hook is a word that we have also seen, but not as often. It means to here or to this place. And illink means from here or from this place. Sorry, did I say illink? I meant to say hink. I have hink written down. I just have illink on my mind because we get similar things over here. We've seen heek and hook. We have not seen illik and illuk. At least I don't think we've seen those ones yet, but we will. They're just like these, but for there instead of here. So you have here or in that. Sorry, there or in that place. To there or to that place, and then from there and from that place. By the way, fun fact, hink and illink are also how we would get hence and thence in English. Hook and illuk are also how we get hither and thither. That's what those terms mean. So if you ever hear those and you are wondering what are these archaic terms really saying, hither and thither is just to here and to there. Hence and thence are from here and from there. Which is to say when people say from hence, they're saying from here. I hate it. I hate it. I know it's a persnickety thing to care about. But I mean, especially whence is one that you hear a lot where people say from whence. Whence already means from where. You don't need a from with it. Anyway, let's get into some examples of usage. I do have some example sentences written up here for you. So, yeah, let's just keep talking about my cats like we often do. Got a couple of sentences written on the board here. Hic feles bila ludet. This cat is playing with a ball. All right. Now you'll notice that the demonstrative pronoun doesn't really take the place of a noun, or at least not necessarily. Very oftentimes, it's going to show up right next to a noun that it agrees with in the same sense that an adjective would agree, where they're in the same case number and gender. Hic and feles are, in this case, masculine, nominative, and singular. It's my subject. This cat is playing with a ball. All right. In the example on bottom, we have that ball has fallen into the water bowl. All right, where, again, my subject is actually the ille, but it agrees with pila. All right, they're working together. That ball has fallen into the water bowl. Okay. Now, I said they don't take the place of a noun. They actually can. In English, we don't really do that. This and that are words that always show up with some other word that they agree with, some other word that they modify. The Romans, however, actually do sometimes use this and that to replace and not agree with a noun. And they do like so, because when you're talking about this and that, there is a distinction of proximity. This would be things that are close to you, that are things that are far away from you. And that can be in literal space, or it can be more figuratively speaking. But in that sense, it can also mean the former and the latter. So if you ever have a paragraph where you have a couple of people or a couple of entities of some type named early on in the paragraph, sometimes in that paragraph, they'll just then go and replace the first person that was named with just ille everywhere, instead of using their name again, and the second one that was named with Heek or some form of it instead of using their name again. So what this says is I have two cats, Luke and Leia, right? And then I go on and have another sentence, but rather than continue to write the names Luke and Leia, what I have is the latter is sleeping on the bed, but the former is biting my feet. All right? Or if you don't want to say the latter and the former, if you think that sounds too stodgy, you can still say this one and that one. Right? I have two cats, Luke and Leia. This one is sleeping on the bed, but that one is biting my feet. All right? And the nice thing about this particular example is that Luke is a boy, Leia is a girl, so it's real easy to tell which one is which that I'm talking about because I've got a feminine form here to describe Leia, and I've got a masculine form here to describe Luke. So, yeah, so you can use it that way. But here's the thing, the Romans actually don't very often use third-person pronouns when we do in English, much more often than they use actual third-person pronouns like is, and id. They're much more likely to just leave a pronoun out entirely and leave it implied, or, in fact, to use ille. I don't know how many times I've seen this, but it's a bunch. In this sentence, instead of translating ille as that, you'd probably just translate it as he. He has sharp teeth. Now, you can still say that. You can still say, like, that one, or that man. Of course, I'm not really referring to a man. I'm referring to my cat, Luke. But that's literally what it would mean. It would mean that one, or that man. Particularly if like, it is referring to a person and there's no other word in there, you can just say that man. But you can also just say he, because that's what we would say in English, even if the Romans are choosing to use a demonstrative one instead of a personal one. They still mean what we mean when we just say he generically. So that is your demonstrative pronouns. I know it's a lot, but also, I mean, I gave all the pronoun forms there with examples. So hopefully it makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't, of course, ask questions. I know I always say that, but you know what? I always mean it. Okay? The book is going to introduce these, but it's going to be a little while before you see it. And in the meantime, while you won't be seeing the introduction, you will be seeing various forms of these show up. So now you know what to think about them when they do. All right. I will see you guys ever so soon. And yeah, we'll talk about more stuff.